right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And Al, if you could lead us in the pledge, that would be great.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ask the clerk to call roll, please.
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner District 2, Kevin Schutte.
Here.
And Commissioner District 3, Sharon Trask.
I'm here. Move on to item number 4, correspondence and organizational business. Do we have correspondence?
Cynthia Stang sent in a Lewis Mason Thurston Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council application.
Short and sweet. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 5, open forum for citizen input. This is the time we set aside for citizens to stand up and talk about anything that is not on the agenda. You'll have a 3-minute limit, 15 minutes total time. Do we have anyone in the room that would like to say anything? Kim.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. I read in the journal that the bypass or the freight corridor has been pushed back 2 years, and I'm here today to encourage the Commission to reach out to all the other elected bodies in North Mason, PUD, Hospital Board, School District, and build some sort of a coalition and speak to our state legislators and our federal legislators and try to get that back on track. Belfair and North Mason is being held hostage, and traffic's just deplorable. So if you could make that happen or precipitate it to happen, I think it'd be a really good thing. Thank you very much.
Great. And Ken, I forgot to ask you to say your name and where you're from.
Oh, pardon me.
Sorry about that.
Ken Van Busker. I live on Northeast 61 Davis Farm Road in Belfair.
Great. Thanks, Ken. All right. Do we have anyone else? All right. Seeing none in the room. How about on the Zoom room? All right. Not seeing anyone. Let's move on to item number 6.
Madam Chair, sorry. Madam Chair, I move adoption of today's agenda as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt today's agenda as written. Holy cow. I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Moving on to item number 7.
Madam Chair, I move for approval of the minutes of December 20th, 2022, January 3rd, 2023 regular minutes, December 27th, 2022, and December 28th, 2022 special minutes, and week of January 2nd, 2023 and January 9th, 2023 briefing minutes. And I apologize, I have no glasses today. Somehow they're not in my book, so. Yeah.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes for December 20th, 2022 and January 3rd, 2023 regular minutes, December 27th, 2022 and December 28th, 2022 special minutes, and week of January 2nd, 2023 and January 9th, 2023 briefing minutes. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to item number 8, approval of our action agenda. Man, feels like a Monday. Commissioners will read through the action agenda, and items can be pulled off for discussion or vote. Commissioner Schutte, if you could read items 8.1 through 8.4. Commissioner Netherland, 8.5 through 8.11. And I'll read 8.12 through 8.14.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 8.1, approval of warrants and treasurer electronic remittances. Claims clearing fund warrant numbers 8093111, through 8093392 in the amount of $5,607,295.02. Direct deposit fund warrant numbers 93215 through 93613 in the amount of $829,698.94. Salary clearing fund warrant numbers 7007111 through 7007144 in the amount of $1,114,252.47. And treasurer electronic remittance in the amount of $7,606,780.47. Item 8.2, approval for the chair to sign the 2023 Memorandum of Agreement Appendix A between Mason County and Washington State University Extension for funding in the amount of $90,072. Item 8.3, approval of the resolution for the sole source purchase of the R556I integral suppressed upper from Federal Eastern International to upgrade the current upper rifle system. And item 8.4, approval of the revised interlocal agreement for the use of jail facilities with the City of Shelton to change the flat rate fee to a daily per diem rate of $130 per day.
Madam Chair, number 8.5 reads approval of the 2023 indigent defense contracts with Tashner Law PLLC to provide legal representation for both District Court and Superior Court. Item number 8.6, approval of the resolution amending the Mason County's Veteran Advisory Board operating policy and procedures to reflect changes to Section 2, Financial Policy, increasing the annual cap from $1,200 to $1,800 and a one-time catastrophic payment from $1,000 to $2,000, and Section 5, referral to the other services, increasing burial or cremation costs from $1,000 to $1,600. Item number 8.7, approval to sign a letter of support for the Port of Allen's request for grant money from the legislature for planning and design to replace the Allen Pier. Item number 8.8, approval to reappoint Gene Robinson to the Parks Advisory Board for a second term expiring December 31st, 2026. Item number 8.9, approval to sign the letter of support to the Washington State Committee of Geographic Names regarding the proposals for new geographical names Nathaniel Sargent Lake and Rodney White Slough. Item number 8.10, approval to advertise and fill a full-time Foundational Public Health Services FPHS funded epidemiologist position. Item number 8.11, approval for the chair and the county administrator to sign the Memorandum of Understanding MOU with the Lennar Homes LLC regarding 2 fire conditions, and approval for the chair to sign a finding of fact and grant the final approval for the plat of Olympic Ridge.
Item 8.12, approval for the chair to sign the local agency Hall Road detour agreement with Washington State Department of Transportation, allowing WSDOT to detour traffic onto County Roads Old Olympic Highway and Community Lane during the improvements of section of US 101 and State Route 108. Item 8.13, approval to authorize Public Works to select and enter into agreements for right-of-way appraisal services from the county MRSC consultant roster with a maximum payout for the agreement not to exceed $200,000. Item 8.14, approval for the county administrator to sign the contract with Mott McDonald LLC for the completion of data for the Squaxin Island Tribe in Mason County Memorandum of Agreement. Having read through the agenda, are there items that you'd like to have removed for a separate discussion and vote?
Yes, Madam Chair, at the request of a citizen, item number 8.11.
All right, anything else?
Not for me.
Okay. Any item removed for a discussion or special vote or separate vote?
Citizen request, yes. I'd also like to ask that item 8.11 be removed for separate discussion.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone in Zoom room? All right, so item 8.11.
Madam Chair, I move approval of today's action agenda items 8.1 through 8.14 with the exception of 8.111.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to remove or to approve items 8.1 through 8.14 with the exception of 8.11 for separate discussion and vote. Any discussion? I do have one. I just want to thank all of our veterans out there for everything that you guys do and have done. You're always there fighting for those that have served and also for us. So I want to thank you all.
I guess on that note for the increases, just to make known to the public, this is a semi-large increase, but we were able to increase their tax rate and what they received a few years ago, this commission did. And with that, they've been very good stewards of their money. And because they've been such good stewards of their money, they've had extra money that is left over that they want to pass on to the veterans themselves. And because the cost of everything is going up, including the cost of funerals and the like, that's why the request, and that's why even though it appears large, they have the funds to do it, and it's money that you, the people, have already given to them as a part of our tax that we receive as a county that goes directly to the veterans.
I'm not sure, but I'd like to thank you guys and you two from the veterans of foreign wars here in Shelton. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All
Who said
right,
that? No.
let's go ahead and move on to item 8.11. Approval for the chair and county administrator to sign the memorandum of understanding with Lennar Homes LLC regarding 2 fire conditions, and approval for the chair to sign a finding of fact and grant the final approval for the plat of Olympic Ridge. And we'll ask staff to come forward. Hey, Michael, how are you?
I'm well. What would you like me to discuss?
Maybe just give us an update or a summary of what this is
Right,
and
so-
why it's come before us.
So we have today, Olympic Ridge is a plat that was, received preliminary plat approval in December of 2020. It's located on the north end of the Belfair UGA, just above the McDonald's. And it's about a 145 unit development up on the hill. And they have completed everything that they need to complete in order to get final plat approval from the county commissioners. And that's why we're here today.
All right. Any questions for staff?
Can you just describe the process of how it got to this point? So what are the steps that had to be taken, and
Right.
and maybe walk through the conditions that have been placed on there?
Okay. So yeah, they made application in early 2020, and long plats are a 2-part approval process. In the first part, you're doing preliminary plat approval, which goes through a public hearing process with the hearings examiner. And in that review, what the county and others are trying to do is determine everything that needs to be accomplished at final plat approval. What are the conditions of a final plat approval? Determining that, and there's a lot of, a review of the site in terms of environmental and that sort of thing. When you get to that point where you have a list of conditions, and you know what the facts are in terms of the site, you can have that preliminary plat approval, which again went through a public hearing process. And that, under state law, that's the only actual public hearing process involved in the long plat process. The RCWs then give, the applicant a certain number of years to perform those improvements, and then to come back to the county when they're ready for final plat approval. And so that's what's happened here. It took them a couple of years, which is actually pretty quick. And so here we are.
And then you noted that we don't do these all that often. What's the last time that we went through this process?
The last time we went through this process was in 2017 for the Lake Glen Village 14.
Great. Okay.
Which was the first one in many
And-
years.
and-
In many years, yeah,
About a decade at
they
least.
received their preliminary plat approval, I think in 2007 or 8, somewhere in there. And because I think part of the issue is what happened in 2008 in terms of the economy, and that brought it all down for a while.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
And so this vote is actually not a vote that changes any, this is a vote to certify that they've met their
Yeah, basically,
conditions.
so we have Kevin asked about the conditions, and we have the hearing examiner came up with, I don't know, 18 or 20 conditions. And so a lot of my job in the last couple of months has just been go over and over those conditions and make sure they've all been met. And the only thing that that wasn't 100% met was those 2 fire conditions, which one is the posting of no parking signs on areas that the fire marshals determined to be, they needed for clearance for emergency vehicles. Then there's also an emergency vehicle access that crosses the Navy railroad track, and Public Works has also got some utility work going on in that same right-of-way, and so there's a delay on finishing that grade and whatnot, and so that requirement doesn't kick in until you get to the 51st home, so there's a condition there that we can't issue more than 50 building permits in that subdivision until that EV crossing is finalized.
So the last bits of it will be guaranteed through building permit process.
Right, so I mean, if it never happens, then there will only be 50 houses up there with 145 lots, so.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, do we have any questions for staff from the audience? All right, any questions on Zoom for Michael? All right. Hearing none, we'll move into public comment. Public comment? State your name and where you're from again.
Okay. Ken Van Buskirk, Belfair, about half a mile from this development. And I commend Michael. There was a lot of work and effort that went into this. The 220-some page staff report. And I got hold of it on Friday, started looking at it, and very concerned. The hearings examiner's decision was on December 1st, 2020. There was 22 conditions placed on the thing, and I read in Michael's staff report that the final plat approval is not to be granted until WSDOT signs off on the intersection improvement at Ridgetop Boulevard and Highway 3. And Michael commented, much to the surprise of staff and much to the surprise of the public too. The public is under the impression that there's going to be an improvement made to that intersection. It's desperately needed. But I think if you will bear with me, I don't know if you can pull up the emails that DOT sent. They're on page 338 and 339 of the staff report. I don't think those emails fully explain why the improvement isn't needed. And if you bear with me, I'll tell you why. The hearings examiner, in his decision, said that the combined projects, that's both the apartment complex and the one we're talking about now, are expected to trigger the needs for a new traffic signal at the intersection. A condition of approval will require the intersection improvements to be in place and approved prior to the final plat approval. Now, there was a lot of talk in the community about a right-hand turn lane out of there only. I happen to agree that that makes the most common sense. That intersection is horrible visibility. But what I discovered when I went through those emails that are on page 337, 338, and 339, those emails that the DOT sent were 2 months before the hearings examiner's decision. 2 months before he made his decision, and they said that they had no further comment. Other than there's an email in there from WSDOT employees to SCJ, who were the consultants that were doing the proposal. And one of the emails, I think you can see it there, says, I would prefer for safety reasons to have a single lane exit. Well, somehow that's disappeared from the discussion. And this happened before the hearings examiner made his decision. The second email is most concerning to me. It's a very poor copy, at least that I could see. You can't hardly read it. I don't know if that's the case with what you've got in front of you. It's from, it was on page 338 or 339. But from what I can tell, I had to magnify it super. It says the crashes within this segment that were attributed as intersection related or driver related were excluded from the data set. That doesn't make any sense at all. Why would they would do that? To take the crashes in their study and the driver related crashes out of the data set, and it didn't get a full understanding of what has happened at that intersection. And then the bottom part of it, at least on the copy I saw online, there's a summary and conclusions. The whole summary and conclusions is cut off of that. There's nothing there. So fast forward now to February of last year, just a year ago. You all approved the Belfair Planned Action EIS. And as you're aware, I perhaps was the one that made the most comments on the Belfair EIS and the SEIS. And I had a lot of comments about transportation elements and concurrency requirements. I went back and looked through all the comments that were received on the Belfair EIS, and this was February of 22, less than a year ago. The very first comment was from Mr. Andy Larson of Warstadt. He's from the same Olympic region as these other folks that commented. This was after the hearings examiner's decision. And quote, he says in there, proposed mitigation needs further discussion at the SR3 Ridgetop Boulevard intersection. The EIS dismisses the roundabout prematurely. So to summarize, please delay a decision on this final plat approval, just on that one particular portion, until that intersection improvement is in place and approved. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Do any of you have any questions?
Yeah, I actually have a question for staff regarding his. Okay. So was that a requirement for the establishment of this, or was that a recommendation? And if it is a requirement, has it been met?
So let me say it like this. So it was assumed by staff that an improvement would be needed at that intersection. And so that I drafted the preliminary plat conditions of approval, and then the hearing examiner does with them what he will.
Mm-hmm.
And so that one went through, and he, based on what my draft, he made that the official condition. And then it's been pretty much, for better or worse, it was pretty much a black box to me. No communication, no responsiveness from DOT at all to anything that I sent them regarding this plat. And so finally I got that copy of the email a couple of months ago from one of the consultants on the project.
So I guess what I'm asking though is, has the condition been met? Has DOT officially signed off, or was there any action at all?
I've got nothing from DOT. So the way I was looking at it when I was putting together this final plat approval is that that was a condition of the hearing examiner, and the consultant was telling me that we don't actually have to do that. And I know there have been discussions with other people in the county about this, but not with me. And I said, well, I need proof that there's no condition required. This is what was provided to me. So, and I accepted it as proof.
Okay, so I guess that's my question. So you did accept it as proof that it is not required?
That was the way I interpreted that.
And you've interpreted it
Yeah.
that way? Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, we'll move on to,
Is there any other comment?
oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Was there any other comments or in here? Nope. How about the Zoom? No. Okay, now we'll move on to deliberation or a motion.
Madam Chair, I'm going to go ahead and I'll have comments afterwards. I'm going to recommend that we sign the memorandum of understanding regarding the 2 fire code conditions and sign a finding of fact and grant the final approval for the plat of Olympic Ridge at this meeting today.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve or to sign the memorandum of understanding regarding the 2 fire code conditions and approval to sign a finding of fact and grant the final approval for the plat of Olympic Ridge.
Comment. One thing the public needs to know, this commission definitely took that very seriously. As a matter of fact, last Monday at our briefing, this commission unanimously requested that we work with the state to establish that as a requirement on the access there. So we've already taken that up as a commission. We're moving forward on it. The question that's before me and where my heartburn would normally be is whether or not all the conditions were met. And Michael McSims has been around for a long time, and if he tells me that he believes that with the proof he has that condition has legally been met, to deny it would be inappropriate, whether I agree with that or not, when he's the one that knows that subject better than any of us. I've never known him to be dishonest, so if he says that it's met and he feels it's met, I'm going to support that, and that's why I made the motion. Hopefully we overcome that, because I think it definitely needs to be fixed, without a doubt. But if he tells me that they've met the requirement, I will support that.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think Ken, your comments I think are really well taken. Both the comments on item 8.11 as well as during public comment. In that, as we see this growth and we see the pressure in the Belfair UGA and even in the Allen UGA and Shelton UGA, these transportation issues are going to have to remain front and center for all of us, and so. I know Commissioner Netherland has worked with Steve Rourke at Olympic Region DOT, the administrator there. Last week I spoke with Steve as well about a number of issues, including this intersection as well as the freight corridor. And this is one of those times where this commission is in lockstep on not just asking for, but demanding improvement in the Belfair UGA for transportation. You all have been paying into these projects through your gas tax and otherwise, and so our expectation back to DOT is work with us on fixing these intersections and getting these projects moving forward, because the community deserves them and they demand them. And so this is one of those things where it goes through a hearings examiner process. They're somewhat prescriptive in terms of what our options are. Where we had flexibility, we did agree to these conditions that relate to the fire code, and we're going to keep pressing DOT to make that right in, right out, as Commissioner Netherland mentioned. And generally speaking, aside from the transportation issues, which are a major headache and safety concern for folks, it's always good for us to be in a position to plat these types of developments in the urban growth areas. We just completed a housing needs assessment here recently at the county that shows we're thousands of units behind in housing. And so we have a need for housing across the spectrum, and this is going to help fill a need there. And so, as we continue to see this growth, we have to leverage that growth and your voices to the state in order to get those improvements. We have a responsibility to collect on future development there per the EIS to collect traffic mitigation fees and leverage those dollars with the state to get improvements as well. And so, even though we don't have that intersection in place today, and we're still fighting for the freight corridor, we're not gonna let off on any of that. And I appreciate the commission's support and effort on those projects as well.
Yeah, just real quick, I'll ditto their remarks. I won't repeat them. But this is, of course, we all know that there's session going on in Olympia right now, and so now is the perfect time to get our voices heard before that budget is passed, to make sure that corridor stays on their radar and to make sure that it's pushed through. It's vital. We need that. It's pretty obvious. I spent Friday with Sheriff Sperling driving around the county, and there are so many needs. There's a lot of rural counties, and we're one of them that has a lot of very special needs. We're different than a lot of counties because we have a lot of water and our land masses are separated, and so we need the state to remember that we're pretty darn special. I think so anyway. And so the harder we work to keep Mason County at the top of their list, the better. But sure appreciate your comments and couldn't agree with you more. And we'll just we'll make sure that we keep an eye on it and it's not forgotten. Promise you that.
I just want to add, I did stand in the way of this for a little while to make sure all the things were met. So that's why I say when he says that they were met, that's what I'm accepting as gospel. That was the only reason we would stop it, because this is just the fulfillment of something. It's not a granting of something. And when you're fulfilling something, you go through your list. If you do what you're supposed to do, we're supposed to help finalize that. That's our job. Sorry, go ahead.
No need to apologize. Great. All right, anything else? With that, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, let's move on to item number 9, other business. Do we have any department heads or elected officials that would like to make a statement or talk about anything? Anywhere? Anywhere? No? Any on the Zoom room? No. All right. Let's move on to item number 10, public hearings. This is the time we set aside for public hearings. We will ask staff to come forward. This is a hearing to consider the request from Northwest Green Construction Incorporated to rezone 2 parcels, number 12217-24-50030 and 12217-24-50040 from rural residential 10 to rural residential 5.
Thank you. Like you already mentioned, the applicant is Northwest Green Construction Incorporated, the representative Calvin Dow. And the proposal for those 2 parcels, as you said, was a request to rezone from the current zoning, which is rural residential 10 to rural residential 5. Those parcels are in the rural development areas and they're right adjacent to the northern portion of the Fallon UGA. The request doesn't require an amendment to our future land use maps, just the development areas maps. If the request is approved, the applicant intends to apply for a large lot subdivision, creating 4 lots in total, with the eventual purpose of supplying land for single-family residential construction. So currently, he has 2 lots. He could get 2 residential developments. This is just to increase it to be able to do 4. So then staff evaluated the proposal against Mason County Code Section 17.05.80 Section A, and those are the rezone criteria, and found that all 7 rezone criteria were met, with the 8th not being applicable. And then on October 24th, we made a decision of non-significance on this SEPA determination. And then that decision went out for comment to the different state agencies and tribes, with a closing of November 8th for the comment period. We did get 2 comments, general comments, standard letters from the PUD1 and Ecology, and those were attached to the staff report. Public notification: all owners within 300 feet of the subject parcel were notified by mail on November 1st, and the site was posted on October 31st, and then it was advertised in the Mason-Shelton Journal on November 10th and 17th. The PAC had a public hearing on the 21st and heard testimony and my staff report, and they made a unanimous decision to recommend that the BOCC approve the request from rural residential 10 to rural residential 5 for the 2 parcels. I received 1 public comment prior to that hearing, and then I had a follow-up email with that person as well. They seem to be satisfied with, they talked to the owner and seemed to be satisfied with the response. We had a couple other people at the hearing that were concerned, had some concerns about buffers. And then I had a request at the briefing for this to look into other similar requests of residential rezoning and if we ever required buffers. I did look back in our rezone files back to 2003 for similar rezones, and I didn't see any conditions put on there that for buffers for going from lower density to a higher density in the rural lands. The planner gave certain types of options for action on approvals, and it was either approve the proposal as requested, deny the proposal, or modify or remand back to the planning department. Now, in the case of modifying, their modifications would have been rezoning to a more appropriate zone, or they would, if it was in the case of rezoning a couple parcels, they may approve the request for a couple and then not for the other. And then remanding would have been something may have came up during the public hearing that might have changed staff's opinion on the criteria. So staff would go back and look at that criteria. But I did not find any that had any condition for buffers. Now, you can condition something with a buffer, but it just makes it hard in the case of a rezone because the developer may choose to do something different with the property in the future and may make that condition irrelevant. Other than that, staff in the PAC is recommending that the BOCC review the request and adopt an amendment to the development areas map to rezone parcels 122, 1724, 50030, and 50040 from rural residential 10 to rural residential 5. So, do you have any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Marissa. Do we have anyone in the audience questions for staff? No? Anyone on Zoom? All right. Now we'll move on to public comment or testimony. Does anyone have anything in the audience that they'd like to say or testify?
Sure. You want me to stand here?
Sure. And so please state your name and where you're from.
Sure. My name's Calvin Dahl, and I'm from Rochester, Washington, and I'm the owner of Northwestern Construction, the one who's requesting the rezone. So I like going in front of the rezone board. They were nice people, and I understand the folks up at Lakeland Village. You know, nobody likes development, and I get that. And what they don't understand is that I have a full cutting permit. I could go right now. It's been approved. I could have wiped out all the trees and we elected not to. You know, we're trying to make a nice rural setting. I mean, at the end of the day, I have to resell this property, whether I put homes on them and resell it. So, I mean, I can understand. You know, you drive up Homestead Drive. It's pretty. It's rural, and you know, my intent is to keep it that way. Being hindered with a buffer doesn't really work, though, you know, because when I sell it, the folks might want to put lawn in or leave it trees or take trees out, so I can't guarantee that, but I can guarantee that we're trying to clean it up, remove the brush, you know, make nice secluded home sites, and really, I think you mentioned it earlier, housing is needed and obtainable housing as well, so this parcel really works well as far as what we saw for a rezone, because it goes from, 6 houses an acre up at Lakeland Village to 10 acres. And I believe the reason that it was zoned to higher zoning in the past was because it was part of the Girl Scout camp, kind of, before Homestead Drive went up. That was all forest land. Well, when you put Homestead Drive up through the middle of the parcel, it really warrants for housing development. I didn't ask for all of my parcels to be rezoned, because I have 2 other parcels. The reason is that they're too steep and it wouldn't make sense. So I appreciate you taking the time, and you know, we'll be respectful as we're developing it. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Anyone in the Zoom room? All right. We'll move on to Commissioner deliberation or a motion.
Did we receive any public or written testimony?
No, we did not.
Okay.
Good call. All right. But now we'll move into commissioner deliberation or a motion.
Madam Chair, I move adoption of the amendment to the development area maps rezoning parcels 12217-24-50030 and 12217-24-50040 from rural residential 10 to rural residential 5.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the request for, oh my goodness, redevelopment. Thank you. For oh my gosh, I am not, my brain's not here. Anyway, we'll approve the motion. Could you say it one more time?
Yeah, to adopt the amendment to the development areas map, rezoning parcels 12217-24-50030 and 12217-24-50040 from rural residential 10 to rural residential 5.
Thank you. All right.
Comment. So, this is in my backyard right there, and I've had a lot of people that have contacted me and asked a bunch of questions, and I'm the reason why, the one she was talking about, that was looking to see if that even exists. I was on the planning commission for many years. I chaired it for years, so did Commissioner Schutte was on it, and we have to have reasons for the things that we do. We can't just, we shouldn't never just throw things out just because we're commissioners. There are people that are uncomfortable with the idea that there's going to be homes next to them, but then of course everybody's welcome to buy the property and decide what they're going to do with it. Then there were those that wanted to have a buffer, and I heard that you guys were actually kind enough during the planning to offer that up, but the planning commission decided that it really wasn't necessary, and in further research, as you heard, we don't have any other ones that we've done that with. So to require that would seem inappropriate again, to make sure that everybody is held to the same standard. I had people that were upset because we're not hooking up to the sewer with it, but it's just outside the urban growth area line. And by law, you're not supposed to provide urban services in a rural area. So then they were upset, a few of them at the 1 per 5, but if it was brought into the urban growth area, because they said we wanted to bring it in, then it becomes the same density at least, because you try to do the like density of what's next to it as all of Lakeland Village. So that's not better for what they were asking for. So when a person comes in and asks to do this, usually also in the planning commission, you look for what's next to you. The fact that you have 6 per acre next to you, we have to consider the best use of that property that's next to it. It's not considered spot zoning because we're actually allowing for the use that would come with what the neighbors have around it. So with all that being said, I could find nothing wrong or no reason to ask you to do any of the other stuff, and that's why I'll be supporting it just as it is presented and recommended by our planning commission.
I concur with Commissioner Netherland's comments on that, and I'll just add that probably one of the toughest places to live in a rural county is on either side of the urban growth boundary. Whether you're on the inside of it and think you should be on the outside, or on the outside and think you should be inside, it's somewhat of a challenge. And so, it's a difficult thing sometimes, but in this case, I think the restraint is clear from the applicants, and I think that this is certainly allowable, and staff has gone through the entire process as well as the planning commission. So this has already been vetted by the planning commission. It's received a unanimous vote from the planning commission, and also went through a public comment period there as well. And so I'm supportive of this rezone.
Great. As am I. I support it wholeheartedly. I'm excited that we've got development going and we're offering more places for people to live. It's needed here in Mason County, and so I support it. And with that, I'll go.
I'd like to make a personal request. One of the big concerns they have is you're going to put manufactured homes there because it's a company, and there's nothing wrong with that. And one thing I tried to explain to them is you don't put covenants on areas that are not HOAs and stuff. The county just doesn't do that. But I also have a real estate license, been a realtor for many years. If you were to find it in your heart to build homes there, the value of them will outweigh, as you know, the manufactured homes. It may be easier, but you'll be able to bring top dollar because of the closeness with Lakeland Village there may be a great benefit to doing it, and I hope you would consider it.
Do you know how many manufactured homes go into Mason County in here?
I do not, but
Do you know you are the largest county for manufactured homes?
I'm not surprised,
On the
yeah.
west side?
I'm not surprised. Like I said, I'm a realtor, and I see great benefit for them, especially for housing and the cost for getting them in there. But I'm just letting you know, as we're going to tell you, if you build a home, you'll also get top dollar right there. For that whole region, Lakeland Village is premier.
Yeah, it is. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
All right, and with that, I'm gonna go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you, guys. All right, let's move on to item number 11, boards, calendars, and reports. Commissioner Netherland, and then Commissioner Schutte, and then I'll follow.
Okay, I have the left board. We had our class compensation strategies meeting. We had a closed sessions for union. I had a meeting with Olympic Regional Clean Air Authority, Incident Command Training, North Mason Balance Schedule meetings. I met with Orca Finance Committee and Mason County Housing Authority Director. After that, after today, we'll have a Mason Transit Authority meeting, North Mason Balance Schedule meeting again. Chamber of Commerce, North Mason Board meeting. Mason County Housing Authority meeting. I'm going to try to attend the AC, the Audit Committee meeting if I can. North Mason Balance School District schedule again, and then Board of Health, and that'll bring me back and we'll do it again.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so last week, just I want to note, based on the earlier conversation, did have an opportunity to sit down with Steve Rourke from DOT, and yesterday with our newest elected representative in Olympia, Travis Couture. And I think we have some advocates for us in the legislature on this project, and I think if we can continue, as Ken mentioned, to kind of build that coalition in North Mason with some of the other entities, I think we have a really good chance to get funding restored and get the project back on track. And Commissioner, this might be kind of in line with what you've heard from Steve, but they do have funding through the rest of this biennium, and they aren't stopping work, even though the project has been pushed out. And so I know Commissioner Trask will also be spending some time down in Olympia this session, and so I think we'll have a good shot at getting the project funding restored. But it won't be done without some hard work. So we're ready for that. Going forward, I have a meeting after this with Scott Brewer and Jennifer Poole from the Hood Canal Coordinating Council. Scott is transitioning out of the executive director role there, so we're talking about a little bit of succession planning, and I know Commissioner Netherland, you worked with him on that board for quite a while too. And then I have a YMCA advisory board meeting, and then Mason Transit as well. Have a meeting with Melissa Strong from Mason Health, Chief Nursing Officer, tomorrow, talking about behavioral health options and opportunities for the county, as well as I'll be heading up to the Rural Resource Fair at Hoodsport Fire and EMS. This is a event put on by North Mason Regional Fire Authority, and bringing people together and getting them connected to services that they can benefit from. And as well as a Hood Canal Coordinating Council board meeting. Have a meeting with our HR director, another YMCA meeting, and then also the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health ASO governing board meeting. Also be donating blood Friday morning at Prince of Peace in Belfair. And so there's always a desperate need for blood donors, especially right now. And so I think they probably still have some slots available, I think Thursday and Friday. So if you're eligible to give and able to, please check that out. No briefings next week, but we'll probably be tuning into the WASAC virtual assembly meeting. And then I have Board of Health, Housing Behavioral Health Advisory Board, meeting with a few fire chiefs from the community to talk about MACECOM and some opportunities there. Let's see here. And then have a meeting with the project engineer from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on our Skokomish Valley project, as well as the WASAC Legislative Virtual Update and Alliance for a Healthy South Sound Executive Committee, and then I'll be heading down to Grays Harbor County for the Roanoke Conference, and then back for briefings and a staff check-in with the Thurston Mason BHASO.
I'm not sure if there's an event for Scott. Please let me know.
I will for sure. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So later today, check in with the Public Works Board Traditional Committee, Mason Transit, I have an LTAC meeting, check in with Area Agency on Aging. LSC has a roundtable. LSC is the Legislative Steering Committee. We have a roundtable on Wednesday night, and then I will be in Olympia all day from 11 to from 8 to about 5 for either LSC or Public Works Board meeting with legislators. Should be fun. And then Friday, Public Works Board meeting. And then we're also meeting with the Public Works Board meeting to discuss some of the bills that are going before the legislature. Wasac Virtual Assembly. I'm not sure, but I think the 23rd is the Mason County Republican meeting. I'll have to check on that one. Meeting with Tari and Chris Tibbs from the ARC. We had a Board of Health meeting. Get to drop my cat off for spay. That's exciting. I'm sure everybody's excited about that one. Board meeting for Turning Point. Public Works Board Executive Committee meeting. Area Agency on Aging meeting. Planning, checking with the EDC. My brother's birthday is Friday the 27th. I want to wish him a happy birthday. And let's see, there's Sheriff's Breakfast at Little Creek is on Friday. The LSC session briefing. Then we're back on the 30th for the county briefings. Also on the 30th is our electeds meetings. Electeds and department heads meetings will be after our county briefing. And then Wasac Virtual, and then we're back for our commission meeting.
I have the elected meeting on the 31st.
There you go. Well, I probably do too. Let me check.
Either way, I'll be
Yes,
there.
I had that on the 31st
Yeah.
as well.
That's in the next
Yeah.
calendar announcement.
Yeah. Alrighty. So we'll all be there for that one. All right. Do we have anything else, commissioners?
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn.
Second?
We are adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Good week.
Yeah, I'm taking my wife away.